Welcome to the deep dive. Think about your weekly grocery bill, maybe your fuel costs, or even your retirement portfolio. What if I told you events happening thousands of miles away could actually shift them quite dramatically? Not like next year, but maybe even next week. Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, how the recent turmoil in the Middle East isn't just some distant headline, it's actually a direct factor, potentially an immediate one, in your financial outlook. And all our insights today, they come straight from the experts at my pensions advisor. So for investment teams, the big theme this year, especially in the first half, has really been portfolio resilience. It sounds like a buzzword, maybe, but it's really about stress testing. Looking at specific geopolitical shocks, asking, are investments hedged right? Can they handle currency swings? Do they have exposure to sectors that, well, do okay with volatility or are protected from energy shocks? And while earlier in the year, the main story was probably U.S. tariffs, right? That uncertainty. The Middle East has, well, it's rapidly become a rising worry. And that's sort of culminated in some pretty significant recent events. We've seen an immediate impact, a really striking one, actually, particularly with oil prices. Yeah, that upward swing, it was something like 20% over just a few weeks ago.
That's right. And that 20% jump, it's not just a number. It signals real market anxiety. It points to a significant geopolitical premium getting priced in faster than we've seen since, well, maybe the early days of the Ukraine conflict.
And that surge in oil prices, how does that connect to the bigger picture for our listeners?
Well, what's really concerning here is how that connects directly to the broader inflation picture. It's almost certainly going to add upward pressure, not just at the pump, but potentially across the board.
Right.
And if you connect those dots, it immediately draws eyes towards the U.S. Federal Reserve.
Right.
What action, if any, might they take on interest rates?
Ah, okay. Because any move there could ripple out, couldn't it? Affecting mortgages, business costs.
Exactly.
Right.
Trickling down to your daily expenses, even the value of your savings, perhaps. It has pretty substantial consequences.
So, okay, looking ahead then, oil prices are one thing, but you mentioned the broader risk picture. That brings us to a specific place, doesn't it? This Strait of Hormuz. Why is that particular spot so central here?
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. For anyone less familiar, well, it sounds big, but it's only about a 30-mile wide stretch of water right between Iran and Oman.
30 miles doesn't sound like much.
No, but the key thing is, through that narrow passage, something like 20% of all global oil passes every single day.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah. So a potential shutdown or even just a significant disruption there, it wouldn't just hit fuel prices generally. The real insight, I think, is that it could choke off specific types of crude oil, the kinds vital for, say, petrochemicals or heavy manufacturing globally.
Ah, so it's not just about gasoline. It's about the wider supply chain.
Precisely. It creates this sort of cascading domino effect, way beyond what we normally think about at the gas station. It would be seen as, well, quite an escalation.
Okay, so bringing this back to the listener, what does this heightened risk, especially around Hormuz, mean for them, practically speaking?
Well, it means an increased risk of stagflation, especially if oil prices stay this high or maybe even creep higher in the coming weeks. And stagflation, for anyone maybe not familiar, it's that really nasty economic mix, isn't it? You get stagnant growth, rising prices, and often higher unemployment, all hitting at the same time.
It's a real headache, yeah.
Yeah.
A headache for central banks, too, because the usual policies to fight inflation, they can end up slowing growth even more.
Right. But there's maybe a small silver lining. I remember reading the U.S. economy isn't quite as reliant on oil as it used to be.
That's true, yeah. The oil intensity has declined over time. We use less oil per dollar of GDP now compared to, say, the oil shocks of the 70s. So that could soften some impacts. It might mean the burden shifts more, maybe hits sectors like heavy transport or logistics harder rather than causing broad inflation everywhere. Okay, so maybe a slightly different flavor of economic pain, potentially. And just to, add another layer, we still have that ongoing U.S. tariff situation simmering in the background, right?
Yeah, that hasn't gone away.
Which just adds another layer of uncertainty to that whole inflation picture we were just talking about, amplifies the concerns.
Absolutely. And maybe that leads to a final thought for you, the listener, to sort of mull over.
Ah.
How understanding these specific global flashpoints like Hormuz, like the tariff situation, and seeing how their potential economic ripples work, even when they seem far away, how that understanding can actually empower you, help you navigate what is, let's face it, a pretty uncertain financial landscape right now. Maybe consider, what other global choke points are out there. Think about the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal. Which ones might might hold a similar kind of sway over the world economy and maybe closer to home over your own financial well-being. It's really about connecting those distant dots, bringing them right to your doorstep.